Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you just joined us, this is International Forum. It's all about the Syria crisis, where we have, yes, soldiers loyal to Assad fighting back to take over Syria from the so-called leaders right now, recorded the death of over 1,000. And people have been talking so tough. What is really happening? What is really going on? Remember that Assad was able to rule Syria for over 30 years. And it's something that's been there for quite a long time until people revolted. But right now, it's like they are pushing back. It's like they are fighting back. I wonder what is happening. Like I said before, I have Derek Ohunwago, Special Assistant to the Senator representing Edo South. Honorable Derek, it's good to have you on the show.
Nice to be here.
All right, so what can you make out of this situation? At first, we have an Assad regime supported by Russia. They were there in the country holding so strong. So all of a sudden, there was this fight with Ukraine. They lost grip of it. They were chased out of the country. And right now, they are coming back again in full force, saying Syria belongs to them. What can you make out of this?
You know that in politics, there is no permanent friend or permanent interest. Permanent enemy, sorry, only permanent interest. In diplomacy, you cannot say always or never. Anything goes. Anything goes. Look at the case of Romania that you mentioned earlier. A winner of an election was barred from continuing in the election rerun. You know, having said that, Syria is a very strategic point, you know, in the Middle East, and it's a strategic corridor that is very important to countries like Israel, Turkey, most of the countries around that region. Syria is a very strategic point, to the extent that some time ago in the past, the Golan Heights was a hub that was, you know, fought vigorously for, because it's a point where warfare becomes so easy, you know, for whoever is able to occupy it. But today, war has advanced much further and better than it was. So Goliath might not be so strategic anymore, but Syria is a very strategic point, you know, like I said, in the political warfare as it relates to the Eastern Bloc. Having said that, yes, just as you mentioned, because of the heat of the war between Russia and Ukraine, the rebel forces were able to push harder, and they gained control of you know, the landmass of Syria, to the extent that President Bashar al-Assad, you know, had to go on exile, you know, in Russia. Yes, the possibility of President Bashar al-Assad coming back, you know, to be president of Syria is very, very possible. It's very, very possible. Remember, you recall that he's from the second most populated ethnic group in Syria, which is the Alawites.
Yes.
Although the current president, by name Ahmed al-Shara, yeah, is from the Sunni tribe, which is the most dominant and populated tribe in Syria. But the international interests for people like countries like America, the entire EU, Israel, and what have you, their interests seem to make Syria a very destabilized country. And one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a nation is when the nation start to tread or focus on issues like tribe and ethnicity. Syria is mostly concerned about their tribe and ethnicity. One tribe fighting against the other. The Shias are fighting against the Sunnis are fighting against the Alawites, and so on and so forth. And all of these tribes have their own militias We have the Shia militias. We have the Free Syria Army that is backed by the U.S. Army. You know, we have the Syrian, you know, defense forces. We have the national defense forces, and so on and so forth. All of these forces have their own group, pockets of, you know, enclave, their own military, where they have their own control. They have groups, troops that they lord it over, that they control, that they can give command to, and those people will go all out to fight. So in such a destabilized society, it is very, very difficult for people to come together as one. And like I said, it is because of the interest that the Europeans, the Americans, the Israelis, even up to Iran and Saudi Arabia have in Syria that continuously make the country to be destabilized. Don't forget, this same interest is what the Europeans and the Americans have in Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, that makes Congo so devastatingly divided amongst themselves today. So, having said that, to go back to the main issue, that the chance of Bashar al-Assad coming back to be president is very certain, but there are some factors that can aid or support his coming back.
All right.
Which is?
Before we go into those factors, when Bashar al-Assad and his family were chased out of Syria, they went to Russia. It was like an easy sweep. What has changed? Because the military, they refused to fight. It's like just allowed the rebels led by al-Shura to overrun them. It was so easy. They gave up. They were shouting. They were happy about it. They went to the presidential palace, ransacked everywhere. It was just too easy for them to overcome the Syrian army led by Assad. And right now, the Syrian army, they are fighting back. What do you think have changed?
Well, one of the factors that makes a military or an army to be better positioned for warfare, number one is their morale. Secondly, logistics. Thirdly, experience. Fourthly, there are a lot of other factors anyway. So as soon as Bashar al-Assad flee from Syria, the morale of the country's, the national defense forces was seriously dropped. So a lot of them took to their heels. Some took cover because they were no longer enjoying the support of the presidency. You will also recall that some time ago when a certain individual was governor of Edo State, everybody was looking at his body language, acting, pretending to be like him. There are a lot of people were now saying they are now technocrats and so on and so forth. So the body language of the top leadership determines how a society moves, the flow of command and so on and so forth. So because Syrian president, then president, you know, took on his heels and went to Russia for exile, the Syrian forces that was initially loyal to the government had to go take cover. But now that they are seeing the body language of international diplomacy favoring, you know, Russia, they feel that the momentum of the Russia and Ukrainian war might quickly be advantageous on the part of Russia. They know now that there is a chance of their leader, you know, galvanizing forces of logistics in terms of ammunitions, firearms, in terms of other equipment that favors military campaign. They know that any day now this might happen. So as a result, this is what is granting them momentum to now come out, to oppose the current presidency, of al-Shara. But the mistake they are making here is that they are coming out too soon.
Too soon in what way?
Too soon. For you to topple a government, the government must first of all become somewhat unpopular. Currently, a lot of the people, nationals, tend to like this new individual. He's a young guy, 42 years old, and he's from the ethnic Sunni, Muslim group, who are the most populated people of Syria. So they would have given him time to make some mistakes. Because no matter how powerful a force, a military force or campaign is, until the people of that particular land, until they decide to take side with you, it will be very difficult for you to conquer a nation, even though you win a warfare in that nation. So it might be difficult if they start this campaign now, when they don't have the support of the people, the Syrians, as it were. Because majority of the Syrian people still believe that this new individual is good for them. So they need to take it easy. They need to go to their drawing board with a view to knowing. Because time, in warfare, time also is a very critical factor. Because time comprises of, okay, this particular time of the year in Nigeria is March. And the rainy season is slowly coming in. If the terrain was to be in Nigeria, will it favor military campaign? So these are some of the factors. So the time these people are coming out now to be rebel, will it favor them? Does the weather favor them? Does the climate favor them? The people on ground, the locals, would they embrace them even if they win a decisive victory? These are the issues. And even if they decide to go all out now, will Russia, who is the major defender of the Assad regime, will Russia have the required time and their time and other resources to deploy logistics and other military, needed, appliances for this warfare? So they need to calculate very well so that they will not fight a battle that was already lost before it ever, started.
All right. You talk about logistics, talk about timing. Some of the opinion that the reason why the Assad-backed military choose to strike is because of the period of Ramadan. That seems to be an opening for them to strike, in the sense that al-Shara belong to the Sunni Muslim, and right now they are fasting, wanting to, embark on this spiritual journey, that this is like an opening for them to reclaim Syria. But you're going to answer this question after this break. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you just joined us, this is International Forum. We're taking a look at Syria crisis, the possibility of Ousted President Assad returning to Syria. Don't forget about the massive attack, yes, against the al-Shara administration by the soldiers loyal to Bashar al-Assad, the Ousted president. Now, these were one time the soldiers that just surrendered. They posed little or no resistance when al-Shara's militia group came up to fight to topple the government. Right now, they are coming back, and I have Honorable Derek, who will go here with me in the studio, throwing more light on this particular aspect. I asked a question before we went on that break, because we're talking about the Muslim month of Ramadan. Is that what the Syrian military loyal to Assad is trying to capitalize on?
Well, if they are backing on the fact that the Sunni Muslims who are in the current armed forces of Syria is fasting, would give them an edge, where they might be banking on a very obsolete military tactics. It's not even a strategy. Because, yes, strategy, very obsolete strategy. Because scientifically it has been proven that a human being can stay for weeks and stay active without food. You know, an individual can stay for days and remain active without food and water. So, don't forget that the Muslim kind of fast entails that you can eat from dusk till dawn. You can only not eat from dawn till dusk. So you have 12 hours of the night to be able to consume whatever you want to consume, so long as there's no alcohol and smoke in it. Then you have all day long not to consume anything. So that is a very lame strategy to engage on this kind of warfare. So having said that, they should go back to their drawing board and see what time favors a warfare that we eventually see to the victory of the Assad-backed regime from coming back to take office. The Ahmed al-Sharaa-led forces, I can assure you, have the required morale. They have the best logistics, because whether I like it or not, although in 2013, the U.S. State Department designated this Ahmed al-Sharaa, the current president of Syria,
and the military group as terrorist organization.
As a global terrorist, international terrorist.
I'm coming to that aspect of it. I'm coming to that aspect of it.
But today, they are now whining and dining together. That is to support our earlier position that there's no permanent friend or permanent enemy in politics, and that there is the term never or always is not a term to be used in diplomacy. Anything can change at any point in time. So today, the Ahmed al-Sharaa forces have what it takes in terms of equipment, in terms of other logistics, to quell any form of uprising. And in the best interest of the Assad regime, if he will ever be able to raise his head again, he needs to pipe down. He needs to go back to their trenches. He needs to go back to their drawing board and continue to plan. What happens to planning for many years in order to win a very decisive victory in a warfare? So they should not be naive. They should do what is proper. But this particular, warfare, I can see it as a mere fiasco.
Mere fiasco.
That will lead them nowhere good.
Okay, fine. Now, if you take a look at another point of view, because try to look at hypotheses on the reason why these people choose to come back to fight. Don't forget that while Joe Biden, the U.S. president, then U.S. president, was around, the war against, Ukraine was so intense that Russia needed to use many tactics, equipment, manpower, focusing more on Ukraine. When Donald Trump came in, some aids were stopped from getting to Ukrainians, both military hardware and the rest of them. Do you think that the possibility of having so much to spare, that's why they now have the time to support al-Assad to go recapture his own seat in Syria, hypothetically speaking?
Well, U.S. on its own is one of the countries, if not the only nation, that is capable of, waging multiple warfare in multiple locations, in multiple continents at the same time. I think U.S. is the only country capable of doing that. So it didn't matter whether they had a little break in the Russia and Ukraine war. That's what would have probably given them leverage to be able to pump in more resources into Syria. Not necessarily, but we can only say that the only thing that caused Bashar al-Assad losing his seat is because Russia is not capable, as of now, of fighting multiple warfare in different locations.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Don't forget the hands of Russia in Georgia, Sibyllis. Don't forget also the hands of Russia in Poland in some area. Don't forget also the hand of Russia in Romania. Don't forget the hands of Russia also in backing up Iran while they are doing their war.
I think you need to understand that.
Don't forget the support of Russia in supporting North Korea. You say that Russia don't have the capability. Is that what you're saying right now?
I think.
And don't forget also Russia stood by with Bashar al-Assad all through these years until the war with Ukraine break out.
I'm trying to let you know now that it would have only been possible for the rebel forces in Syria to topple the Bashar al-Assad government because Russia does not have the capacity of fighting active multiple warfare in multiple locations at the same time.
So do they have it now? Because they are going back again to Syria.
As far as I'm concerned,
yes,
Russia still does not have what it takes to fight active multiple warfare in different locations. If they are able to do it now, it might be because the war in Ukraine has seriously slowed down. Seriously, they can afford to deploy arsenals, multiple arsenals, even up to 50% of what they have currently, to any other location. But as it were during the time of Joe Biden, they couldn't have moved a single double-barrel gun away from the Donetsk and the regions or Crimea regions, as it were. But currently, there's a little relaxation in the Russia-Ukraine war. And if care is not taken, within the next few weeks and months, the war can come to a halt and eventually come to a final stop. So long as what Russia have always been saying is they should not NATOize Ukraine and all the territories around it. And what you will not accept to be done to you, why will you always want to do it to Russia? I'm talking in the case of America. America wanted to go to start the Third World War when Russia wanted to deploy some military hardware to Cuba then. And see that it doesn't make sense to aggravate a sleeping giant. And Russia decided to, stop that effort. So I think it would have also made sense not to have allowed countries like Poland to become NATO members because they share border with Russia. So everybody needs to also feel the pulse of his or her neighbor when it comes to these kind of things.
All right. Now, you mentioned of some tribes and, of course, some sect in Syria, some supporting Assad, others also supporting al-Shura. As it stands right now, some pundits have this notion, it might be right or wrong, that Syria is an important country when you talk about the balance of power in the Middle East. Remember when Assad fell immediately, Netanyahu ordered his troops to go block a particular sector or region to prevent insurgents from coming into Israel from that particular point. Do you think that if Assad should come back, Israel can just go to sleep, particularly in that border, the Golan Heights or the border close to Syria, how will I put it now, country?
Well, we mentioned it earlier.
Yes.
That Syria is a very strategic hub in the Middle East. Very strategic, to the extent that whatever happens in Syria, it may even affect Europe. Because Turkey, which is a border nation with Syria, is in Europe. So, also, if Syria is destabilized to some extent, if it affects Turkey, it will also affect the balance of power in Europe, in the sense that Turkey military strength is almost the whole of European military strength put together in terms of manpower.
Don't think you're exaggerating.
Go and look at the record.
Don't think you're exaggerating.
I think it's almost the same as the entire Europe put together. Go and look at the records. So that is why today the king of what they call British monarch,
King Charles.
King Charles is even, I don't want to use a foul word on air, meddling, is kind of kowtowing to Turkish President Erdogan, trying to woo them to join this fight against Russia. Because they know that in Turkey joining Europe to fight against Russia is when Europe have a chance of winning against Russia without America. And with the incoming of President Donald Trump, who has made it very clear that his government is about nationalism. He's not so interested in international diplomacy as his predecessors. He is only interested in what is in it 100% for America. He's not interested, like I said, he's not interested in fighting wars that does not directly affect American interests. Because the war with Russia and Ukraine is about European interests. It has nothing to do with American interests. And because Trump is a very strong imperialist, he will even prefer that Europe falls. So that the three imperialist nations, as it were today, the three international powers at its east today is USA, China, and Russia. So they might even come together eventually, these three nations, to do a renaissance of the Berlin Conference of 1884, if I'm not mistaken, so that they will not parade the world among themselves again. Because Trump is interested in Canada, is interested in Greenland, is interested in virtually the whole of America.
All right, we want to go for a break. When we return, we'll continue with the discussion. Don't go away. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you just joined us, this is International Forum taking a look at Syria crisis, the possibility of Ousted President Assad to return to power in Syria. And of course, I have Honorable Derek Ohuago here with me in the studio. From what is really going on? Do you see Syria becoming another Libya? We have sects fighting for dominance, maybe for the oil-producing region, maybe for, the security aspect of it, the Shia, the Sunni, and of course the tribe fighting among themselves. Do you see it happening the same way it happened in Syria? Because some are saying Assad, whether I want to believe it or not, is a stabilizing factor in the Middle East.
Well, no, Assad is not necessarily a stabilizing factor in the Middle East. Because even when he was president, a lot of territories were still being controlled and governed by, the opposition forces. I would say that there's a possibility that Syria can become like Libya, in the sense that Syria have very vast, huge deposit of carbon mineral wealth in terms of petroleum. And Europe and America still believe in petroleum. And when a region is destabilized, they can always go in there and get the product for next to nothing. And because petrol is what causes the dollar to be stabilized, America will even fight to conquer or destabilize a territory. Although Europeans are mostly known for destabilization of a territory in order to get its mineral wealth. But America is mostly about taking charge of everything Ukraine and Syria. They don't come through the back door. So, and if America's interest is in trying to get the oil in Syria, that means Syria will still remain or will continue to be unstable. Because Russia also have interest in Syria in the sense that Putin is not an individual who betrays trust, so to speak. Assad is his international partner in terms of diplomacy. He will always want to fight for the reinstatement of Bashar al-Assad. And he knows that in having a partner in Bashar al-Assad, who is or was the president of Syria, will he also have a kind of quasi-grip in the Middle East? Because recently, Turkey has started to turn its back on Russia, even though they have always been allies. Remember when the war between ISIS forces and the Syrian forces were very hot years ago. It was Turkey that allowed Russia to use its territory to launch ballistic missile that now, neutralized all of the ISIS forces, that made that war very easy for the international coalition to, gain a very decisive victory, as it were. But if Bashar al-Assad wants to come back and America also have interest in Syria, automatically Syria can become like Libya. Because when two elephants fight, it is the ground that suffers. That's our local palace. So this is my own, submission as it relates to the particular question that you asked.
Now, if you take a look at the way the Middle East is going right now, on one hand we have Israel and of course Palestine, but they're beginning to see if they can cut a deal or strike a deal. But of recent, the Prime Minister ordered the power being cut off from, the Palestine and the Gaza Strip, put them in darkness. That's on one hand. There's a war raging there. Iran also still talking tough in their own region, pointing like a figure at Israel. And of course, America, you have the Hezbollah. And right now, you have a reignited war in Syria. I mean, what does this really tell for, the Eastern Bloc?
First of all,
talk about the Middle East.
The President Trump declaration that America will take over Gaza, it's not possible. In international diplomacy, things hasn't, eroded that bad. Things hasn't gotten that bad that another nation can come into another land without any justifiable reason to say they want to, cleanse all the, locals and take over the land, develop it for its own purpose. It's not possible. The only thing that is possible with Gaza is, number one, all the Eastern blocs, talking of Iran, Saudi Arabia, and what have you, can come together, put finances together, and rebuild Gaza. Or number two, the Palestinians can work together with the Israelites to also build Gaza. But I believe the Palestinians will opt for the first option, which is the Iranians and the rest putting money together to build Gaza. And I read recently that that is what the Eastern blocs are already proposing to do as regards to Gaza. So the Middle Eastern bloc has almost in all time in history been not a very stable bloc. It has never been a very stable bloc. They've always been fighting each other, and until they come together as one, the Muslims have the tendency to become the most influential sect in the world, to the extent that they are able to come together. If they are able to do away with these their fashions, Shia, Sunni, Alawites, and what have you, they have the potentials of coming together. Don't forget that they are also the fastest growing religion in the world currently. So if they are able to do away with the fashions, they can influence the world. And like I told you earlier, King Charles was bootlicking the president of...
you can use that word bootlicking for a king, for crying out loud. He's a king. For crying out
well, okay.
They're negotiating.
When a Christian king...
They are negotiating.
When a Christian king now decides to go and break fast with a Muslim...
he's showing friendship. He's showing conviviality.
There are some things there are some extent you cannot go in diplomacy. If not, when you do so, people will see weakness in you. So if you now decide to go and breakfast and pray with them and do things in common with them, ask a mosque to be built left, right, center, all over the British Empire, that already is showing weakness on the part of the British monarchy.
All right, that'll be a talk for another day. Many people will be like, it's not bootlicking. They are trying to have this international relationship. After all, UK right now is no longer part of Europe, so they want to do business with other countries, and that is allowed internationally speaking. But your own opinion about Assad coming back, you're saying yes, there is a 100% chance of him coming back because the soldiers have awakened and beginning to fight back. But what does that really tell for the Middle? It's been unstable for quite a while now. Is it Iraq? Is it Iran? Is it Yemen? The list just goes on and on. People are like, stable. Saudi Arabia, Qatar. They don't want trouble. They want to be on their own. Just
enjoy their wealth.
Economy, enjoy their wealth. But aside these two Eastern Bloc countries, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, what can you say about the rest? For Iranian sanctions, sanctions, sanctions. Yeah, Iran, what's it called again? Iraq, you know the story too well. Yemen, they're saying it's a hub of terrorists. Come on. Right now we have
and
Syria,
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan, thank you. We're almost part of Russia, a former region of Russia. Well, we just keep on watching. Let's see how this fight will pan out. Don't forget that Al-Shura has vowed to punish those responsible for killing civilians. And it's like anybody they see, they shoot. And that is not good for welfare. Or warfare.
It's not a popular strategy at all.
Just shoot outside. What is going on in Syria? Anyway, I'll just report back to you what is happening internationally. Derek, I thank you so much
for
coming on to the show.
Thank you for
We'll do it
having me.
again next week, Tuesday, God willing. Bye for now.